All right, welcome to your video on rounding and order of operations. So rounding rules are really important because what'll happen is you'll get the right answer, but you'll round incorrectly. And when you put it into MyOpenMath, your homework software, it will likely mark it wrong if it's not rounded correctly. And then it can be frustrating because you did all the math correctly, it was just the rounding. So let's take care of the rounding part to avoid some of that frustration. So the rounding rules are as follows. First, you're going to be told what to round to. It could be the nearest 10, 100,000, a specific decimal place like tenths, hundredths, thousandths, or sometimes it just says round to 2 decimal places. So pay first attention to what you're rounding to, know what you're rounding to. And then the next one is you're going to look immediately to the right of whatever place value you're rounding to. And that digit is called the rounding digit's neighbor. So we're going to look at the rounding digit's neighbor, the number to the right of it. So there's two things. If it's 5 or more, then you're going to round up by adding 1 to the digit that you're rounding. If it's 4 or less, then you keep the digit the same and then change all the digits to the right to 0. In other words, you just drop all the other digits. So let's practice not just with a number, but actually computing an operation. So if I compute 14.5, and I'm doing this off to the side in Desmos, 14.5 divided by 2,000, what I get is 0.00725. All right, this says to round to the nearest hundredth. So the hundredth is 2 decimal places to the right of the decimal. So 1, 2. So it's this one right here that I'm rounding to. So I'm going to look to the right of it. Its rounding neighbor is a 7. Okay, so let's go back up to the rules. Is the rounding neighbor 5 or more? Yes. So that means I'm going to bump this 0 up. I'm going to add 1 to it. So it's 0.01, and then everything else gets dropped. So this 14.5 divided by 2,000 rounded to the nearest hundredth would be 0.01. Let's do another example. I'm going to compute 99.658 divided by 2.349 in Desmos, and Desmos tells me that's 42.42571307. So I just wrote down all the digits that gave me. The hundredth again would be, I'm going to highlight it this time. This is the hundredth place. Ooh, my highlighter's a little fat. Let's pare it down a little bit. There we go. And then, so the rounding neighbor would be the 5. So is 5 or more? Yes. So I'm going to add 1. And I get 42.43. All the other digits get dropped. And that's the answer. All right. Now that gets a little more complicated when there's 9s. So with 9s, if the number that's being rounded up is a 9, then you need to bump up the number to the left of it and remove it. And then repeat if that number is also a 9. All right, so let's put that together here. We've got, we're rounding each to 4 decimal places. So first, let's decide where that is. So that's this 9 right here. And if I look to the right, the rounding neighbor, it is 5 or more, so I need to bump that 9 up. But 9 is the highest single digit, so I can't bump that up. Instead, I'm going to go to the next digit and bump that one up. So it's 4.566, and then everything else is a 0. Let's look at the other one. 4 decimal places. I'll highlight it again. That's this one right here. So another 9. And the digit next to it is also a 9, so that's 5 or more. So that means we're bumping up 1, but I can't do it to this one. So I look to the left. That's also a 9. Keep going until you get to a number you can bump up. So it's going to be 7,014.78 if you add that 1 to that 7 right there. So you just keep going until you find a digit less than 9 that you can actually add 1 to, and that's the answer. All right, order of operations. So some of you might have learned PEMDAS at some point in your math career, and there's a saying that goes with it, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's to help you remember the letters PEMDAS. And PEMDAS is a good starting point for order of operations, but I want you to be careful because the M and the D and the A and the S can actually be interchanged. It depends on which one comes first. So if multiplication comes first, then you do that, but if division would come first, then you would do that. And then with addition and subtraction, it's the same thing. So just be aware of that. I don't think it comes up too much in our course with what we're doing, but you might have seen little memes on social media where people are arguing over what the answer to an expression is, because people will tend to multiply first no matter what. So just a little tidbit there. All right, so we have some examples of order of operations. Now these are actual problems that you'll have to solve in this class, as opposed to just a bunch of random problems that may never come up. So you will actually have to compute stuff like this in our class. So let's break down what we need to do. So PEMDAS says to do parentheses first. Okay, let's do parentheses first. So that would be the 1 plus, and then we have to make a decision here. We've got a division in here and we've got an addition. So inside the parentheses, the division part is what we need to do first. So 1 plus, and then I'm going to do it in Desmos, 0.06 divided by 12 is 0.005. All right, and then we have 12 times 10 as our exponent. So now all I have left is the addition, so that would be 1.005 in the parentheses. There's nothing more I can do in the parentheses. So then the next one would be exponent. And in the exponent, there's actually an operation to do. There's multiplication. So let's go ahead and multiply. That's 120. So now there's only one thing left to do, and that's to do 1.005 raised to the 120th power. And the answer to that is 1.819396734. So suppose I wanted to round this to the nearest hundredth. Actually, let's make it 1,000th to make it more interesting. Round to nearest 1,000th. So that would be this 9 right here. It doesn't really make it more interesting. Whatever. All right, so the rounding neighbor is 3. 3 is not greater than or equal to 5, so the answer would just be 1.819. Okay. What happens with these problems when students get to finance, this is where this problem is coming from, is the big problem is they don't do this multiplication before they do the exponent. So they'll do to the 12th power and then multiply that by 10, I guess. I'm not sure, but they end up with the wrong answer. The other thing is, you do not want to be rounding each step of the way. So I'm actually going to go into Desmos. And we're going to look at this problem. Let me pull up this so I can see it on my screen. Okay. The best way to do this problem is to open Desmos and do 1 plus 0.06 divided by 12. It doesn't matter if you have that 0 in front of the decimal or not. And then raise to the, what you need to do here is put parentheses 12 times 10. All right, so in Desmos, it's going to do the whole thing all in one shot, and that's ideal as opposed to breaking it down piece by piece. So it's good to know the order of operations so that you can break it down, but ultimately I would recommend you use Desmos because if you start rounding along the way, you're going to get your answers wrong. I've been seeing that happen a lot lately. Now let's do another one. All right, so we need to start, it's kind of the same setup, so we need to start with that division. So I'm going to go to Desmos, 0.03 divided by 360. And, oh, okay, good. So when I did 0.03 divided by 360, I got this answer. Lots of threes, and then it says times 10 to the negative 5. Now we haven't got to scientific notation yet, we will. But what this means is I need to move the decimal to the left because it's negative. So I'll change my color here. So negative means left. And then this is how many moves. So I take this decimal, so I'm going to write it down here so there's more room. And I'm going to move it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And everywhere I have a little blank, I put a 0. So this is equal to 0.000083333. That's what that means. And there are more threes. The threes repeat forever. So actually, when I write it like this, I'm already rounding. And then we're going to add 1 to it. So 1 plus 0.000083333 raised to the 360 times 3. So that's 1.000083333 to 360 times 3. All right, 360 times 3 is 1080. And then if I put 1.000083333 raised to the 1080, it comes out as 1.094170177. So if we rounded to 3 decimal places, that would be 1.094. All right, let's compare that answer where we rounded halfway through or partway through to if we just put the whole thing in Desmos. I don't know what's going to happen. It may not make much of a difference, but sometimes it makes enough difference that you can get an answer wrong when you do this. Let's see, it was 360 times 3. Oh, and see what happens if I don't put the exponent in parentheses is Desmos thinks I'm done with the exponent and goes back down. All right, so Desmos gives me 1.0 94170,181. That's not much different from what I had. So that one worked out okay, but please do be careful, because if you start getting all your answers wrong, that's probably why, is you're rounding. So it's always preferred that you, so the Desmos answer, I think it's the same. 1.0, yeah. If we rounded to 3 decimal places, it would be exactly the same. The Desmos answer ends up being the same here, but it's preferred that you just put the whole thing in as one big chunk in your calculator, and you're going to be much more likely to get it correct. But you should also understand what the order that Desmos is doing it in, so that you can check and be sure of your work. I hope that makes sense. All right, that's it.